is now reclining away from the Falcon 9.
All right. We should be just about live here. I'm trying to make sure that we've got all of the audio coming through. And really excited about this, guys. All right. We should be just about live here. I'm trying to make sure that we've got all of
Dragon has transitioned to terminal count.
Oh, yeah. All right. So, liftoff is in just a couple minutes here.
Okay, we're T minus 2 minutes, 42 seconds. Stage 1 LOX load is closed out. Stage 2 will continue to load for about another half a minute or so. Once we get the completion of stage 2 LOX loading, we have to vent down the line, so you'll see another large white cloud coming off of the strongback. That'll be normal. That'll happen around
transitioning to
T minus 1 minute and 40 seconds. We're going on internal power now.
Just a few seconds away from the stage 2 LOX load being complete. It's been almost 9 years since we've been in this position. A lot of work done by thousands of people to get to this point. All our eyes focused on 2 now.
Stage 2 LOX load is closed out. Propellant fills are complete. Dragon is in auto idle.
Stage 2 LOX load complete. All fuel, all
It is about to happen, ladies and gentlemen.
1 minute, 34 seconds.
It is about to happen.
Prime gas closeouts is starting.
We are about to be in space again. Really excited about this. Cannot wait. But thank you guys so much for joining us. We are doing a little bit of a different type of intro to our podcast, Total Media Live. This event was happening the same day. I figure why not go ahead and start off our show.
Dragon is in countdown.
Here we go. We're in the countdown.
FTS is armed for launch.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is it.
Under a minute now, the FTS, the flight termination system, has been armed.
Under a minute.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
Guys, we are good for launch is what we are being told.
We're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
Let's light this candle. Wow. Watching history, ladies and gentlemen.
T minus 30 seconds.
We are watching history. This is tremendous. As the countdown goes down, what a tremendous event to be happening in the middle of all this chaos that we've got going on, especially in America, with the riots going on.
9, 8, 7.
What a tremendous moment.
5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
0. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon
Wow.
9.
I'm speechless, ladies and gentlemen.
T plus 30 seconds into this historic mission.
Wow.
Flying crew on board Dragon and Falcon 9, and look at them go.
Could you imagine going that fast? 700 miles an hour. 770 miles an hour. 800 miles an hour. I mean,
Down to get ready for the period of maximum
goodness
dynamic pressure.
gracious.
We're in the throttle bucket.
You know, it reminds you of what a lot of people have felt every time these launches happen. If we can do something like this,
Vehicle is supersonic.
if we can shoot something from the ground
Seated Mach 1 on the
into
Falcon 9.
outer space with the amount of teamwork and knowledge, I mean,
We're throttling back up to full power as we're through
unbelievable.
rescue.
Did you guys, look at how it's kind of like shaking as it's accelerating. I mean, we're up to 1,800 miles per hour. And the view is incredible that we are seeing live. I mean, this is one of those unbelievable things that we get to witness as human beings.
On your right screen, you can see that first stage with the grid fins deployed. It's making its way back to attempt to land on our drone ship. Of course, I still love love you today. And we're just about a couple minutes away from the entry burn, and that's where 3 of the 9 Merlin engines do ignite to help slow the vehicle down as it
All right.
re-enters back into the Earth.
I am going to go ahead and go clean this up. Hopefully it only takes me about 2 minutes, but you guys will be able to
Dragon SpaceX nominal trajectory.
see all of the images that you want to see. So
There's that call out. They are still
go ahead and
almost
continue to enjoy this
on
incredible
track.
moment. I'll be
Still on
right
second
back.
Stage, and that's that MVAC engine on second stage on your left screen. Again, on your right screen is that first stage booster coming back towards our drone ship. Of course, I still love you. We're about a minute away from entry burn.
Meanwhile, that second stage continuing to power Dragon into orbit. Again, if you're keeping an eye on that timer, that's going to continue to burn until 8 minutes and 44 seconds into flight. So a little over 2 minutes from now, we'll hear the call out SECO. It'll then be a little
Stage 2 propulsion is still good.
A little over 3 minutes until Dragon physically separates from the second stage of the Falcon 9 after the upper
Dragon
stage gets a
SpaceX
chance.
nominal trajectory.
Dragon copy, nominal trajectory.
Continuing to check in with Bob and Doug as they are on a nominal trajectory. Just about 10 seconds away from that first stage. Starting that entry burn on your right screen, we should be able to see that view live.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there is that entry burn beginning. This burn lasts about 36 seconds long.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Well, that entry burn minute away from SECO. We'll have a number of events all happen in rapid succession. It'll be the second engine cutoff.
Stage 1
We'll
entry
be
burn
looking
shut
for
down.
that stage 1 landing burn shortly after.
Actually, just within a few seconds of each other. It's such a cool view on your left screen, seeing Bob and Doug on Dragon. Right now you can see the displays that they are seeing right now themselves.
Terminal guidance.
And back throttle step.
We are coming up 25 seconds or so away from SECO, or second engine cutoff.
This is also the point where Bob and Doug are experiencing their highest G-force. We're seeing the counter tick up to right about
Stage
1.8.
1 Sonic.
Copy Shannon.
You heard Shannon, so that just means they're in their final abort zones. If they were to abort at this point, it would either be an abort to land off the coast of Ireland. Standing by for second
Stage 1 landing
cutoff
startup.
confirmation.
And back throttle step. And back shut down. Stage 1 landing alert.
Confirmation of SECO's second engine cutoff.
Now we are waiting for our first stage to make its way to our drone ship. Of course, I still love you.
Dragon SpaceX nominal orbital insertion.
And
Launch
yes,
escape system
confirmation
is
of
disarmed.
nominal
Dragon
orbital
copy,
insertion.
nominal
Stage
orbital
1 landing alert
insertion.
deployed.
And what you're seeing on your screen is a live view of our drone ship, where our first stage will be coming down. Looks like we lost that live view, but we'll wait for confirmation of that landing shortly here.
Falcon 9 first stage successfully landed.
And
aboard
there you can
course
see
of
on your screen, Falcon 9 has landed.
Okay.
This is the first Falcon 9 to carry
Wow.
humans to orbit, so very exciting for us.
So it landed
And
back
as you can see on your right screen, Bob and Doug are still
where that's
making their
incredible.
way to their targeted
That's
orbit.
incredible.
Someone need a recovery 1.
So exciting today.
Oh my goodness.
It doesn't stop.
It does not stop.
Like so far everything that they have wanted to do,
So that means
it seems like has been successful.
where they're supposed to be.
And we need a FRC on recovery 1.
And it's
So-
about 12 minutes
This is FRC.
when
Can you
Dragon will
switch over to
separate.
TCF9?
Looks like we
Pretty
saw
cool.
a 0G indicator floating around there. I know Bob and Doug owe us a little bit about what exactly that is that they brought up with them.
And before separation, before Dragon initiates separation from the second stage, they do make sure
So
to make.
they are
do
still
ensure that the
trying
vehicle
to
is not
deploy.
spinning
That
and
is the
disconnect
next
ignition
stage
before we separate.
that it seems like they're trying to accomplish. And if I was trying to guesstimate how long that would be, let's see, I guess we're looking at
Exactly. So we do
2
expect
minutes?
that separation to occur
3 minutes?
about a minute from now, but
okay.
they do wait until they have full confirmation that it is ready to separate.
Wow.
Such cool views. I cannot get over this view that we are seeing right now. Bob and Doug on the right screen, inside of Crew Dragon, out in space.
Yeah, already 200 kilometers over planet Earth, or a little over 124 miles.
Just remember, though, there are people that are still skeptical about space. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how you can be skeptical after watching this. Now, whether or not the whole, 1969 landing, and that is obviously, wow. What a way to start our podcast today. And I couldn't think of really a more unique event to cover. I think that this is probably the most unique thing that I've seen in my entire life. And I don't know that it's close. Because, I mean, look at the live, shot of their offices there at SpaceX and NASA. And I want you to realize how many masks are on, the fact that, literally they're social distancing. You've got that going on in the middle of one of the most incredible events that we've ever had in mankind's history. I mean, think about how many times, human beings have sent something to space successfully, and then think about how many times we've done it with human beings on board. And that's just one of those things that when you watch it, it's inspiring. And I couldn't think of a better thing to happen in the midst of all that's going on right now. But I want to welcome everybody to the Total Media Podcast. And if you wanted to fast forward, I will try to make a note that, let's see, it took us about, maybe 21 minutes. I'll try to make note of that, but about 21 minutes to get to the official podcast. I guess it'll probably be closer to about 19. I don't know. I'll have to do some math. But thank you guys for joining us for another episode. Have been working behind the scenes. A lot of incredible guests lined up. I can't wait to bring them to you. But today was just such a unique thing that we wanted to go ahead and do. And we figured we would start the show off with a incredible historic event. So hopefully you enjoyed that. If you haven't seen the video footage of SpaceX and NASA teaming up to shoot humans into space for the first time in quite a while, then you should definitely check it out, because I'm telling you, it's uplifting. It's uplifting for a lot of reasons. And I think one of those reasons that, it's inspiring is because there's a lot of chaos going on right now in the United States. And if you're an American, you've seen it on the news. If you live on planet Earth, you probably have heard about it. But we might as well start the show off by talking about what's going on across the country, including in Nashville today. But there are a lot of protests going on, and some of these protests are turning violent. Some of these protests are starting peaceful and then turning violent. Some of these protests are including riots and looting. It's incredible. In the midst of this entire pandemic that some people have completely decided to, I guess, forget about, kind of push to the side for the moment, there's quite a lot going on. And so we're going to try our best here to bring you a little bit of coverage on that and try to talk about that a little bit from a few different perspectives. But like I said, guys, it's been a wild ride for the past entire year. And basically what's going on is there was a African American brutally murdered on film via cell phone coverage, and the police officer that is being charged with third-degree murder went ahead and had his knee on the person's neck that is now deceased, and that has basically led to a lot of riots across different parts of Minneapolis, and it has led to other looting in Minneapolis. It's led to protests in many different American cities across the country. Obviously, Atlanta has been on the news for some of these as well. And, you know, it's been really interesting to see the different footage that has gone on as this is kind of unraveled. And to give you the whole picture, basically it started with some really disturbing images of looting a Target. And this Target was just destroyed. I mean, the employees were basically being pushed out of the way. There were fires going on in the Target. I mean, it was legitimately like a scene out of a movie when all hell breaks loose. And people were really upset that there was looting going on. That was one thing that has been really highlighted, and for good reason. Thievery is, you know, no matter how you slice it, it's incorrect. And, you know, it's unfortunate that some people have to be in position to resort to thievery, and I think that's probably the bigger picture. But the fact that thievery was going on in the form of looting caused a lot of uproar. And so fast forward, there was some tweets from the American president, and he basically was quoted as saying that if there's looting, there will be shooting. And to add more controversy onto all this, you've got the fact that Twitter, the source that the American president tends to use to say these kind of things, he was actually censored somewhat in the form of, they basically put an asterisk next to his tweet. And so he made some claims about mail-in voting, and Twitter basically fact-checked him. And that led to a lot of people being enraged at Twitter deciding to quote-unquote censor the American president. So you've got these riots going on at the same time as social media companies are censoring politicians. And whether or not one would agree with the fact that it is censorship, it's definitely a form of editing, because they're adding on to what he originally stated. And it's just unique because we don't really see that happen anywhere. I mean, that's not something that's right. Like, how many times has my audience tweeted, or somebody in my audience tweeted, and then somehow like Twitter like slaps on a disclaimer with their tweet? That's not something that typically happens. So the fact that they did it to the American president is quite surprising and quite disturbing to some people. And so the reason why it's disturbing to some people is because it is a company basically enforcing their viewpoints by saying, hey, here's something that you didn't think about, even though you tweeted about it. And they're adding that on to his tweet. So it's not something that these social media companies do to anybody else, but they particularly chose the American president. And so it is causing a lot of people to look at social media and say, wait a minute, should you have any kind of control on whether or not something is true, but I tweeted it? Because if you're going to fact check his tweets, or if you're going to add on disclaimers on his tweets, why aren't you doing it to everybody's tweets? And so it's a very slippery slope. And so one would counter argue, okay, well, they are the president of the United States. They should have credible information that they are passing on to their people. And you're right. But what if what he's posting is true from a certain point of view? How do you argue that your point of view is better or that your point of view is correct? And if you're going to do that to everybody's tweets, then what is freedom of speech, and why is Twitter able to do this in the capacity that it's able to do this to even the most powerful people in the world? And that's a very strong argument. So I think that there's a lot of validity for being upset that Twitter has made such a critical move to edit/censor a American president's tweets. But I want to also give you the other point of view of, hey, if you say something that's wrong, then you shouldn't be able to completely parade that around. Because when you're parading around conspiracy theories, when you're parading around things that are probably not going to be accepted by most people because it does sound like a conspiracy theory, then why should we not edit the fact that, hey, here's the conspiracy theory that this person is tweeting about, but here's a fact check on it? And it's kind of one of those things where it's kind of strange, because it's not like presidents have not lied before. I mean, Donald Trump is not the first president to lie before. So why does Twitter get to now say, hold on, we're going to cherry pick this president and say, hey, anything that you say, we're going to fact check it, and if it goes against what we have evidence of, we're going to go ahead and flag this tweet. And then once again, we originally started by talking about these riots that are going on and these protests that are going on. So you've got all that going on with Donald Trump's tweets, and now he tweets about the looters. And once again, the tweet was quoted as saying, if there's looting, there will be shooting. So Twitter went another step further. Not only have they edited the American president's tweets, now they have straight up hid them. And once he said that, it basically Twitter said that it was kind of inciting violence, and so they legitimately hid Donald Trump's tweet. And then the White House retweeted it, so it became visible again, which was kind of like a middle finger to Twitter. And oh yeah, Donald Trump has signed an executive order discussing trying to basically block Twitter from being held liable from these kind of tweets. So basically, if Twitter's not liable for what you tweet, then you can legitimately tweet like anything. It's freedom of speech, which is there's obviously certain things that apply to you still can't tweet about them. You know what I mean? Like if it's illegal, I mean, it's still not something you can tweet about. But like I said, man, this has been a very insane time to watch all this go down. And, do people have a reason to be upset at Donald Trump and how fast he reacted to Twitter compared to how fast he reacted versus the pandemic? That's a good question. I mean, Donald Trump did react extremely quick, and a couple of things I want to highlight. He did ban travel from China quite rapidly. That was probably one of the best things he did if we were scared about people from China coming in, which it might have been too late still, but it was still earlier than a lot of people wanted. And another thing that Donald Trump did that was positive was he got the $1,200 checks out, the refund checks to a lot of people. Now, did he get it to all the correct people? I mean, obviously that's debatable. Is it enough? Obviously that's debatable. But it's something that has not really happened before in our country. And so the fact that he was willing to do that, I think that is what we would kind of qualify as a good thing. And so then there's obviously talk about a second stimulus check that is really gaining a lot of steam. And so it's really interesting to look at his presidency lately. And I think obviously the verdict will be out on whether or not this executive order even holds up. But, it's, if we're trying to be realistic and looking at multiple points of view, there has been a lack of response in a lot of ways, but there has been a positive response in a few ways. And so, it's important to just not get so locked into you're always right, you're always right, you're always right, or you're always wrong, you're always wrong, you're always wrong. I mean, that's a very dangerous line of thinking. And, let's talk about the result of some of these riots that we're seeing and these protests that we're seeing. It's really interesting because there's a lot of people talking about some of these protests are turning violent and they're turning a little bit more extreme because there's people like throwing they're throwing, basically incendiary items like basically they're starting fires by throwing things in windows, and all of a sudden there's looting that happens after that. And so the protest or, the gathering may be kind of boiling or at a simmering point, and then there's these people that just gaslight it. And some of these people, there's rumors that they're hired. And even Donald Trump has kind of mentioned that some of these protesters and some of these quote unquote looters are paid. And guys, oh my goodness, that is a dark thought. I mean, think about that for a second. There's a movement to try to get more attention to the fact that innocent people are being killed by the police, and a majority of them happen to be African American or brown. And unfortunately, there are people that are infiltrating this group and causing chaos, and then the peaceful protesters are basically being hijacked. What they believe in and what they're trying to protest for, that idea is being hijacked by people that are outside of the faction, and that's a dark thought. And I don't know that anybody is necessarily going to believe that as well. I mean, think about that for a second, because it sounds like a conspiracy theory. And it sounds, if you read about this on the internet right now, there's people that don't believe this. They think that literally all the looters are 100% legitimate. They believe that all the protesters are 100% legitimate. And we're not sure that that's the case. And if you follow the history of the way politics usually works, there are people that are paid to protest. That is kind of how lobbying works, right? There are people that are paid to gather in groups and cause chaos. We have seen evidence of this in a lot of different ways. In fact, obviously, the reason why social media companies are such a widely debated topic is some people believe that social media companies such as Facebook are used in positive and negative ways to gain attention for certain political campaigns and certain political candidates. So it's a really shady world that we do live in, and I think we do have to realize that. And I think that does give validity to the idea that, hey, not every one of these looters, not every one of these protesters is legitimate. There are some of these people that are there, and they're probably escalating this because, unfortunately, they may be paid to do that. It may be in their best self-interest. And the idea that people are being paid to protest and do these different kind of forms of riots and kind of escalating things, even if you read into some of the news articles that have come out about the protesters in Michigan across the country, as well as, across the country, not just Michigan, some of these people believe that these people that were saying, hey, we want to go back to work, they were paid to say that. And so, like I said, it's not out of this world. I think it is something that, people should definitely be informed about and, do with it what you want with the information. Does that make the looting and the excessive burning of buildings and things of that nature, does that make it okay? No, I don't think it's okay at all. I think that that's probably the worst part about all this, right? And hopefully the reason why those things are happening, if you want to believe in the best in people, and unfortunately that brings out the worst in people sometimes too, then maybe, hopefully they are being infiltrated. And hopefully it's not just all about making chaos. And unfortunately, when you look at the African American point of view, it's hard not to be angry because, if you want to be frank about this, it's I haven't necessarily talked about this too much. I haven't given public statements about it, and I guess it's about time to do that. But we have had problems with, race relations, including with the police. It's been very well documented. There's been Klansmen that have operated in the police forces across the country. And there's been notable, people that are neo-Nazis that are affiliated with the police. That is not a lie. I mean, all you have to do is just look into it. It's something that you can easily look into yourself. And I could, obviously, if you guys in the comments want me to pull up sources, I can pull up sources for you. But it's one of those things that we have to acknowledge that, not 100% of cops have the best interest of everybody. And it's unfortunate. And when some of those cops or one of those cops acts with those beliefs and kills somebody, it's a tragedy, and we have to all kind of recognize that, and we do. That's the best part about the United States. We have. Most people realize if a person gets murdered and they're trying to give themselves up, we all have watched movies where that has been something that's sad. Do you not realize that we think the same thing in real life? If a person that's innocent gets murdered, that is sad. It doesn't really matter, who it is, if we don't even know the person, if they haven't been doing anything to provoke force that makes them die, then that is something that we don't necessarily enjoy as human beings. And I think that was the reaction of most people. Sure, you have people that are not into certain races and don't respect them. Sure, but that's not most people. Not everybody is like that. And unfortunately, we have these cases where there are a small percentage of cops that align with those particular beliefs, and they kill people that are innocent. And it happens to everybody. It's just a lot of the time it does happen to brown people and African Americans. And what can we do about it as a society? I think we have to continue to say that we're unhappy about it. It's not the fact that it's a racial thing. It's the fact that we cannot have the people that are protecting us killing innocent people. And if we start at that central idea, I think everybody can agree on the race part. Hey, if you single out a group of people, that's even worse. That's even worse, right? So we want to make sure that, hey, not only do we single out, or not only do we get rid of, killing innocent people, let's not single anybody out either. Let's completely try to fix that as a society and frown on that. And as the next generation grows older, and as we continue to, see society mature, that will become hopefully a thing of the past. And I understand the anger. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I'm excited when I see blue lights behind me. If I see blue lights or any kind of flashing lights behind me, I'm a little alerted. I mean, that's just the way it's always been. And that is not to be disrespectful towards the police. I don't even know if it's, something that I could have changed, because, the history of, African Americans and brown people with the police is not necessarily a happy-go-lucky one. And unfortunately, even looking at the history of slavery, you got to remember the idea of police in a lot of things were to hunt down slaves that ran away. And so when you look at the entire picture of police relations with brown people, with black people, there's history that leads up to today that it's not so great. And so we have to try to improve on it. And it's not easy, because nobody really has the right answer to that. I've read different people say things like cops should get a criminal justice degree. And that seems like it's going to make a lot of people not want to be cops. And we already have a shortage of cops to protect us in a lot of different areas. And that's kind of hard to see that being fixed if we make harder requirements to become police officers, like a college degree. And who's to say that a criminal justice degree is the standard for understanding, whether or not some person should be arrested, or you should, use force on somebody. It just seems like maybe there's something in the actual training that is, or maybe it's the way we recruit people. I don't know, because I've met really, really awesome cops that I've worked with. I've met people that are police officers that are not shady people and that are great people. And so not every cop is a bad cop. And so with all of this kind of working together, I don't want to say that it's, broken forever and that we can never fix it. But I do think that, we do need to probably make some changes to the way that we do certain things. And starting with society saying, hey, that's not okay. If everybody's saying that together, then we usually fix it. Like, that's the coolest thing about the United States. We tend to have problems every single generation. And we will have problems until, probably the end of time. But the coolest thing, like I said, about America is that we usually fix them. Like, we recognize the problem as a group of people, and we say, hey, let's fix this. Whether it's voting, whether it's a new president changing things, whether it's the current president changing things, whether it's a group of people changing things. But we usually fix things. And I refuse to believe that we won't fix this problem. I refuse to believe that we won't fix the pandemic problem, because our country is resilient and the world is resilient. Humans are resilient. And when you get a bunch of them on the same page, and it seems like I said, a lot of people in America are on the same page. Hey, we shouldn't murder innocent people. So let's start there, and let's all kind of come together from that. And, from that point on, I think that we will make a positive change. But, like I said, it's tough to see the same story go on. And, like I said, it's one of those things that if we do want to change, I think it starts with us as a people, as a society, saying, hey, let's come together. Let's say that that's wrong, and we'll fix things from there. But there has been so many heavy things going on. Like I said, it was just so exciting to bring you guys the SpaceX and NASA collaboration launch into space. I mean, wow. I'm still in all of that. And I hope you guys watch it. If you haven't watched it, like I said, right after you're done with this podcast, all right? But watch some footage of it. And while you're at it, check out some clips of our previous podcast. You should definitely check it out. Our YouTube channel is completely rebranded. So that way you can go ahead and check out the clips that you want and all the things that you want to check out and listen to. They're all categorized and labeled, so you should definitely check it out. But there are some positive things going on, and once again, this NASA launch is hopefully going to be one of those things that jumpstarts everybody to being excited about future things that may get better and hopefully positive change. But looking at some other things going on in the world, guys, we've obviously got the big news about the NBA potentially coming back and being played in Florida. And let me tell you, as a Laker fan, I'm excited. If you told me that the Lakers have a chance to get a banner this year, another ring this year, sign me up. Because let's be honest, the Lakers have unfinished business this season. We've got AD and LeBron teaming up for the first year ever. We've got all the young guys basically traded outside of, Kyle Kuzma, who, hey, Kyle Kuzma can ball. Even though he's got that Slim Shady dyed, hair going on, that bleach, Kuzma can ball. And I think that if the playoffs come back, hopefully he's had time to get his mind right about his new role, about being a number 3 / sometimes a number 4 if somebody else goes off. But, man, I think that the Lakers have the potential to run the table. And I'm excited about it. There's been talk of a 20-team return or a 24-team return. It doesn't matter. Pull up that LeBron meme. 24 teams, 22 teams, 20 teams, it don't matter. Lakers in 4, okay? That's what I'm talking about here. And I cannot wait to see the season come back. Hopefully it begins with the playoffs, unless they do some kind of 24-team playoff or whatever, or 20-team playoff. That would be cool too. But like I said, I'm just excited to hopefully see the Lakers get one more chance at bringing another title to Los Angeles. I mean, we haven't really been in the playoffs in a long time, and it would be something that would be uplifting for the city, especially seeing all the news about how that particular city, Los Angeles, has been affected and impacted by the pandemic, all the businesses that have been shut down. It would be something that would be uplifting for that community. So I'm hoping for it. I'm biased, obviously. But like I said, I'm hoping that the NBA season returns, and we'll go from there. On to another team that you might be interested in, especially with us being based out of Nashville. And you might recognize one of the shirts that I've got on. I believe it was given out at one of the games. No fly zone here. But basically, the NHL season is also potentially on schedule to return. And what's interesting about this is their return to play plan is going to have a big format in which 24 teams will return to play to basically play for the Stanley Cup. And Nashville seems to be in line at a chance to play in these playoffs. Now, the format's going to be a little weird. There's going to be a round robin. There's going to be a qualifying round, first and second round, and then conference finals in the Stanley Cup. So there's a lot to win. It's going to be a little bit of an endurance. It's not necessarily like a sprint. You know what I mean? It's a lot more about, can you get back into it? Can you be dominant on the ice when it's right? You don't want to peak at the wrong time. And the Predators are going to have a lot of interesting decisions to make, whether or not they're going to start a veteran at goalie or whether or not they're going to start maybe somebody who's a little bit more unproven in the goalie position, especially in the playoffs. And so UC Saros has the potential to, as fans would say, and a lot of fans are vocalizing this, start when the Nashville Predators take the ice in this return to play plan. Now, obviously, Pecorine is well respected in Nashville, well loved in Nashville. But a lot of fans are calling for Pekka Rinne to basically be pushed aside for the remainder of this run. And the crowd is calling for UC Saros right now. I mean, I can hear them right now. Seriously. So the Predators are also going to have some interesting decisions. Like, do they call anybody up? Potentially even some coaching assistants. The interesting thing is the Nashville Predators, let's go ahead and pull up their feeder, basically their minor team, their affiliate. But let's see. The Nashville Predators affiliates have been doing pretty well. The Milwaukee Admirals have seen some success, and it's, a lot. I've heard some Preds fans talk about potentially looking at some of these coaches and bringing them up, since the affiliate season will presumably not continue, and basically add more people to the coaching staff to potentially help the team. I'm not sure that that would necessarily be a requirement for the Predators to make a run to the Stanley Cup. I think it would help. I think the more eyes that you have on your staff, the better you are. But I think that it all comes down ultimately to the players on the ice. And I think that if whoever is in goalie, whether it's UC Saros, whether it's Pekka Rinne, I think that that's ultimately what's going to matter more. And if they can figure out their goalie problem, I think that they will find a way to generate some offense in the new scheme that they are continuing to get better at. And you got to assume, they're going to have, just about as much time as everybody else is to get ready and prepare. And people may still be adjusting to their own scheme while adjusting to the Preds' new scheme. So is there a schematic advantage to maybe a midseason change-up the way they did? I guess we'll see. Are they going to be able to generate goals in the power play? Because that is the number one complaint of every Nashville Preds fan. Once again, that is to be seen. But there's a lot of things to look forward to as this pandemic somewhat seems to pivot to some positive things. And obviously there are more confirmed cases. That is not something to necessarily neglect, but there are some more confirmed cases in certain areas. Potentially, I believe Tennessee is at number 1 right now in the nation, in some metric of, I believe it was new cases. So let me go ahead and fact check that. Leads nation in new cases, because I don't want to give you guys the wrong information. But see this article. Oh yeah, here we go. The Tennessee County. Okay. So is a county that leads nations in the pandemic virus per capita. But our state is definitely making strides in certain areas. I know we've basically picked up things in certain parts of the state, and hopefully everybody else across the world is seeing some positive things happen. And the one thing to continue to remind you is, hey, there's always somewhat of a negative before there's a positive. There's unfortunately, there's times where there's a crash, but we have those crashes because when we have those insane highs, right? Those insane peaks, those insane accomplishments, it feels so awesome, like the one that we were witnessing earlier today. And I think that at the end of this, goodness willing, we all make it. And those of us that are still battling it will fight through it. But goodness willing, we'll be able to succeed and see some more amazing accomplishments that we all can make when we put our minds to it. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Whether you were listening on YouTube, watching live with us throughout this entire event, we appreciate you guys so much. And looking forward to bringing you guys some more guests in the next couple of weeks as things continue to pick up. But thank you guys so much for joining us, and hopefully you enjoyed the show. Have a great rest of the day, evening,